May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. طاب عصركم جميعا. أنا باحث.
It's my pleasure to host this distinguished panel. In the seventh session of this conference, we will have three papers that will discuss an interesting topic, which is military capabilities and emerging security frontiers. We will start as per the schedule with Dr. Subia Khurshid. Allow me to introduce her in few sentences. Dr. Khurshid is an assistant director of the Institute of Policy Studies in Pakistan. She teaches at the Department of International Relations at the National Defense University in DU in Islamabad. Her areas of expertise include the politics and foreign policy of Pakistan, South Asian and Middle Eastern geopolitics, and comparative international relation theories. Dr. Khurshid will have 15 minutes, and we will proceed to the next paper. Her paper title is Implications of Iran Ballistic Missile and Drone Program on the Regional Security Apparatus of the Middle East. Dr. Khurshid, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here and to be part of this distinguished gathering. I would take a moment to express my sincere appreciation for Dr. Mehran and his team for organizing this remarkable event. Today, I'll be discussing the Iranian ballistic missile and drone program and how it interacts with the regional security landscape of Middle East. By using the analytical lens of regional security complex theory, this study will show that the military strategy of Iran security shifts and contributes, whether it contributes to the strategic stability or it perpetuates a cycle of counterbalancing with regional actors, leading to mutual suspicions and arms proliferation in the region. You have to bear with me, okay. So, the Middle Eastern security architecture is characterized by multitude of factors. It's a zero-sum security order where military advancements of one country are often perceived as direct and immediate threat to the safety, security, and stability of other actors. Compounded by the deep-seated historical rivalries, be it ideological or geopolitical rivalries, as we see in case of Iran and Israel rivalry, Saudi-Iran competition, and Arab-Israel rivalries. At the same time, the region is defined by asymmetric power capabilities. While countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel have access to the cutting-edge military technology and far more superior conventional military strength, states like Iran, due to limited economy, sanctions, and isolations, relies on building asymmetric power capabilities by using proxies, ballistic missiles, and drones for balance these disparities. Equally important is the absence, or in some cases, we see the weakness of cooperative framework mechanism in Middle East. Unlike Southeast Asia and Europe, Middle East does not enjoy any cooperative or common structure for conflict mitigation, conflict resolution, or dialogue building. Finally, fragile states such as Syria, Yemen, and Iraq often became arenas of intervention by many states, by regional states, inviting more regional instability in the region. On top of all this, we see great power role. We see the United States has positioned itself as a security guarantor and a major partner in terms of having huge military presence, in terms of bases, naval presence, and maintaining huge security pacts with Gulf monarchies. Simultaneously, it supports the conventional military strength and its unwavering support for Israel, which often creates instability in the region rather than creating balance and sustainable security. Moving onward, here is a rundown of the key events which has taken place in recent past, which are defining the regional security calculus of the Middle East. To start with, we have Israel's unbridled aggression in Gaza, which have killed over 60,000 people. 50% of them are men and women. Then its rampage against regional states, including its strikes on Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Lebanon, Iran, and the most recent one on Iraq. Fall of Bashar al-Assad is considered as one of the key setback for Iran's regional influence and its network of proxies, as it was considered a long-time Iranian ally. Then the brief, short, but intense 12-day conflict when Israel attacked Iran, followed by US strikes on key nuclear sites of Iran, including Natanz and Kardo. Iran retaliated, and it was able to penetrate within the Israel's mainland, and Iran also struck the US base in Qatar. This marked the first direct Israel-Iran war and the first Iranian strike on major US base. It showcased Iran's capability as well as the political willingness to use its technologies against its adversaries in the region. Then we observed the US unwavering support to Israel amid the ongoing genocide in Gaza and Israel's attack on its close partner and close ally Qatar, which is denounced by Qatar as a state terrorism and a violation against its sovereignty. We see there is the raising debate among policymakers, practitioners, and scholars across the globe. They are raising questions not only on the rule-based international order led by the United States, but also the Washington's reliability as a security guarantor for the states. Proxy wars across the Middle East, if we see, there are proxy wars are ongoing with regional powers and their allies, striking through local militias and non-state actors. Israel, Iran, and their proxies engage in repeated attacks and counterattacks in various parts of Middle East. We'll try to explain the regional security by using the analytical lens of regional security complex theory, which is built on the core idea that, as described by Barry Buzan and Ole Weber, that the security is primarily regional in nature. He states that states are most affected by the threats posed by their immediate neighbors, and when those threats, perceptions, and vulnerabilities become deeply interlinked, a regional security complex emerges. It built on the assumption that the international system is anarchic in nature, and anarchy is not an abstract idea to the Middle East. It manifests in persistent insecurity, rivalry, and power struggles. Second, RSCT, Regional Security Complex Theory, emphasizes polarity patterns of amity and enmity. For all practical manifestation, it results into the foundation of rivalries and making alliances. For example, the Saudi-Iranian competition, the Iran-Israel conflict, and shifting Gulf-Israel ties before this war. We can understand the regional security landscape of Middle East by using different levels of analysis. To start with, internal vulnerabilities. For example, weak governance, sectarian divides, and fragile institutions do not remain confined within the borders. They spill over and shape the regional security environment, as we've seen with the Syrian civil war or instability in Iraq and Yemen. Second, domestic insecurities become regionalized. Intra-regional rivalries shape alignments, and all of this is further complicated by external interventions. For instance, Yemen's civil war, which was once considered a domestic issue, was converted into a regional battleground for Iran and Saudi Arabia, and at a site, it was a site for global competition, inviting powers such as United States and even Russia. Finally, the Middle East is not an isolated region. The adjacent regions and the security architecture of adjacent regions have its impact on this region. Pakistan's strong ties to Gulf and Turkey's position by bridging Europe and Middle East illustrates this overlap. And above all, great power intervention embedding the Middle East within the global security architecture. Building on this, we can safely say that Middle East is the textbook case of regional security complex. In short, the Middle East demonstrates an ideal regional security complex scenario where local rivalries, whether Shia-Sunni dynamics or Arab-Israel tensions, and interdependence shape conflict patterns, which in turn guide interventions, meaning the region has its own security logic that cannot be understood in isolation and separately from its internal dynamics. Building on the idea of Middle East as a regional security complex, Iran has used its missiles and drone to impact. Iran has successfully advanced its military capabilities. It has successfully developed and deployed its military arsenals. And for Iran, okay, just a second. Okay, for Iran, these assets are not only a warfare strategy. They are the means of political, psychological, and strategic tools. In Middle East, Tehran holds one of the highest, sophisticated, and largely indigenous stockpile of ballistic missiles and drones after Israel. And though Iran's capabilities are being questioned in terms of its lethality, precision, and range as compared to its regional allies because they have access to far more superior Western technology. Iran missiles and drone program represents far more than a collection of weapons. It is central to Tehran's military doctrine. First, these programs serve as a national, Iran has leveraged successfully, I would say, these technologies to maintain national pride. Despite the sanctions, isolations, and various other restrictions, Iran has been able to produce indigenous technology and are framed domestically as proof of self-reliance under sanctions and isolation, reinforcing its narrative of resistance. Second, it provides a means to counter its adversaries, particularly given Iran's conventional military limitations, often termed as poor man's air force or an equalizer. Third, ballistic missiles and drones are instruments of deterrence. They allow Iran to signal that it can impose cost on its adversaries, whether through precision missile strikes or drone swarms, as we have seen in the last 12 days' war as well. Finally, their strategic purpose goes beyond deterrence. They actively shape the regional security architecture by supplying drones to its proxies, integrating them into hybrid warfare, and exporting them even to global conflicts like Ukraine. I'll skip these slides. Iran started its ballistic missile and drone program as a strategy for its survival during the war of cities between Iraq and Iran. And if we discuss, I'll discuss, if we discuss that under sanctions, isolations, regional rivalries, and great power intervention. From an RSCT perspective, these choices were not made in isolation. They were embedded in regional security complex where every move by Iran triggered counter moves from its neighbors, reinforcing the cycle of rivalry. In short, we can say that what began as a survival mechanism in the 1980s has evolved into a sophisticated, integrated, and exportable capability, reshaping not just regional security, but as global field. Here we can see the huge asymmetry in terms of defense spending between Gulf partners, Gulf states. We can see that Saudi Arabia spends 7 times more than Iran, but Iran's asymmetric tools amplify its influence. Smaller states like Qatar and UAE outspend Iran significantly on a per capita basis. But this disparity explains why Iran leans so heavily on asymmetric tools, drone, ballistic missiles, and proxy networks. For Tehran, these systems provide maximum deterrence and influence at a fraction of the cost of maintaining conventional force, like air force or modern navies, which its rival possesses. While it is important to note that regional security theory perspective is that the spending patterns do not stabilize the region. They feed into security dilemma, and Iran responds asymmetrically, which in turn prompts further investment by its rivals. The result is an arms race with no cooperative mechanism to manage it. When we discuss the response and implications, they vary across the region. Israel has offensive doctrine. It believes on preemptive strikes. It believes on neutralize the target before it materializes. And it has an escalatory risk and regional instability. Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE spend a huge amount of money to build their arsenals and go for strategic realignment, make security agreements with Western powers, enhance security cooperation with various countries, and sometimes they go for diplomatic hedging, as we see in US-Iran rapprochement recently. Saudi Arabia and Iran rapprochement. The implication of this is not stability, it's arms race and security dilemma. Then Iran's proxies, the spillover of these weapons to its proxies is also impacting the sovereignty and spread conflict across the region, further entrenching the instability. Finally, other regional states like Turkey, Egypt, and Jordan largely pursue containment and defensive caution. If we see the reactions of major powers, okay, I'll conclude. If we see the reactions of major power, how they are considering the military advancements of Iran, it is mostly sanctions by USA. Russia believes on military cooperation and alignment, and it moves cautiously. China, on the other hand, is trying to project an alternative system by providing energy routes, creating interdependence, and more economic cooperation without major intervention. So I wrote this paper before 12 days Iran-Israel war, but event confirmed that Iran's deployment of ballistic missile and drones have not only impacted its adversaries, but have generated insecurity spill over to its neighboring countries. Iran's ballistic missile and advancement of drone technology have significant impact on regional security complex of the Middle East by intensifying interdependence, security dilemmas, changing the balance of power, and challenging the deterrence. However, as the regional security complex theory argues, this insecurity is stemming from within the region, so stability cannot come from external or outside agents. Constant reliance on states like United States, Russia, or China will not give anything to the region's stability. Such dominance often fuels into conflict rather than security. Countries in the region need to trust each other's intentions. I believe what yesterday Sayyid Hatibzada has said, that there is a need for collective defense mechanism. I am not sure about the contours of forming an alliance like that, and what confidence building measures does Tehran propose to develop such agreement. But yes, it was a very worthy, I would say, suggestion by the Honorable Ambassador. Regional states, I also believe that we are living in a world where regional states should develop their own capabilities, institutions, and policies that allows them to manage their own security. Stability requires frameworks and proper channels of communication, and cooperation is only possible when states start trusting each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khurshid, for this concise and interesting presentation. Now, from the ballistic missiles and the drones to a much softer weapon, which is the foreign policy. Dr. Kardo Rashid will present another paper he wrote with Kawther Fattahi, titled The Iranian Foreign Policy in the Middle East is a KRG as a Case Study. Dr. Cord is an assistant professor at the University of Human Development at Suleymaniye, Kurdistan. And he is the manager of the Turkish Studies Unit at the Sapi Research Center. He published about non-state armed groups with a focus on Iraqi Shiite armed groups since 2003. His recent works include post-war state reconstruction, Iraq after ISIS as a case study. Dr. Cord will speak for 15 minutes. The floor is yours.
All right. First, thank you very much, Dr. Kamran, for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And thank you very much for Arab Centers for Iran Studies. Our paper is about the Iranian foreign policy in the Middle East, and we have chosen KRG as a case study. Before I start with my paper, I will highlight that the relation between Iran and KRG is not like a relation between two equal partners. Iran is a state and KRG is a non-state actor. So in our paper, we try to highlight that even KRG is categorized or considered as a non-state actor, but still is not a normal state actor like Hamas, like Hezbollah or like Quwat Suriya Demokratiya, SDF, and other non-state actors. Because KRG, they are more than non-state actors. They are acting like a state. We have an airport. We have a draft of constitutions. We have a parliament. We have a kind of elections. So we are kind of acting like a state, and not more like a non-state actors like Hezbollah and others. In our paper, we suppose that Iran has changed its policy even before 7 October and also even before the conflict between Israel and Iran in 12 days. So something happened in Iranian policy regarding Iraq and plus KRG, plus Kurdistan. The reason it goes back to that after the collapsing of Saddam's regime, so a Shia regime replaced a Sunni regime in Iraq. Then here we have a new circle of or a new type of regime in Iraq. We try to use James Rosnau's theory, which it consists of 5 variables, and we try to look at, or chronologically, we have since the Rafsanjani when he was in power until the Hassan Rouhani, because we think that this period is very important in order to understand Iran's policy toward Kurds in north of Iraq or Kurdistan regional governments. Here the theory of James Rosnow. First, according to him, we must be aware of personal characteristics of decision makers and the values, talents, which will have an impact on choices. I think I can change it, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. So according to him, we need to be aware of the personal characters of leader who is in power at that time in order to understand the foreign policy, in order to understand the influence from his personality on creation of foreign policy. The second one is a role of institutional functions and bureaucratic positions that will have an impact, will play in shaping that policy. The third one is societal ideology and cultural values, and also, of course, domestic and public opinion for this country. The fourth one is state structure, how is the structure of the state, and also decision-making power distribution. We need to be familiar of the power distributions in this country in order to understand or to explain for foreign policy of that country. The last one, systematic, which is we need to be aware of international position and also regional's context. How these two will have also impact in creation or formulation of foreign policy. The first one, the historical background for relation between KRG and Iran, it goes back to 1991. After Saddam, he invaded Kuwait, then later he was removed from Kuwait and he lost the control over North Iraq, KRG, and he also lost control over south of Iraq, Shia cities. Then he couldn't come back to the north, so the Kurds, they became self-governance from 1991, and it was a kind of the first creation, formally relation between KRG and Iran. As you can see on the picture, the Khamenei and Nechirvan Barzani, head of the Kurdistan regional government. So that was the first, so the time it goes back to 1991. And for that time, we have Rafsanjani, when he was president in Iran, and we now the time it's about the post-Iran-Iraq conflict. He was very pragmatism in his policy. He kept his relation with Kurds, and he supported, because Saddam, he was in power, so he was common. It was in our interest to help each other against Saddam. So that's why it was kind of cooperation, kind of, let's say, we cooperate. Not only cooperation because of the Kurds, because also in Kurdistan, in KRG, there was Kurdish opposition party like Kamala and Democratic Party. So by doing agreement with KRG, so they could have control over Iranians' oppositions. They could not have a control over Mujahideen Khalq when Saddam he was in power, but then later when Saddam he was removed, they could pull out Mujahideen Khalq from Iraq to some other countries. But still, we have Kurdish opposition party, Kamala and Democrat, but they have like agreement with KRG that they are not allowed to have military actions against Iran. Then we have Khatami. He was continue with his policy. Khatami, he was he was also involved in, let's say, doing agreement between these two parties who are dominated KRG, KDP and PUK, Barzani family and Talabani family. They were in civil war, but Khatami, he started to make mediation between these two in order to get instability back to KRG, and so he continues with the policy from Rafsanjani. But that policy, it was in order to control and to make a domination over Iranians, Kurdish political party. They were located in KRG, they were located in Slemani and Erbil, so we could keep them. They could not have a time, or they could not have a chance to attack Iran. The problem is, when Saddam he was removed from power, and parallelly, we have seen, of course, Saddam he was removed in power in 2003, and in 2005 we have, for 2 years, we have a kind of new constitution for Iraq. And after 2005, parallelly, when Ahmadinejad he came to power in Iran, we have also Nouri Maliki in Iraq, he came also to power. These two politicians, these two, the first one, Ahmadinejad is the president, and Nouri Maliki, he is a prime minister. They have the same kind of perspective regarding to Shiism, regarding to foreign policy. Iran supported Maliki in fighting against Sunni, supported Maliki in fighting against Muqtada Sadr, and supporting also Maliki in getting stability back to Iraq. That was in the first time, in the first term of Maliki from 2006 to 2010. Then that it was in his first term. Then in the second term, when U.S. withdrew from Iraq, a new policy for Ahmadinejad started in Iraq, supported Maliki in order to have kind of exclusion policy against Sunni. We have seen Tariq al-Hashimi and many other Sunni figures. They have been out of Iraq because of accusation of supporting terror. So many of them put in jail, or they led them to go to Turkey or other Arab countries. And that policy means that we have kind of Shia domination in Iraq. We have a totally control over every corner, every institutions in the Iraqi state, not only economy, not only military, also ideologically and dominance. Then, when Rouhani came to power, it was the beginning of ISIS in the Middle East. And also ISIS, he came also to Iraq they also controlled the the second biggest Sunni city, which it was Mosul. They control it, and they also controlled many other Arab Sunni cities. Here we have also cooperation between Qasim Soleimani, one of the most important figure in Shia politics in Iraq, not only in Iran. Qasim Soleimani, he was actual president for Iraq. He was actual engineer behind the Shia in Iraq. And he did an ally with Barzani in order to fight ISIS, because ISIS, they were very close to control Erbil, which is a capital for KRG. That was, again, coming back to a new circle or a new game for cooperation between Iran and Iran and KRG. But because of the exclusion policy from the Shia in Baghdad, the Kurds decided to have the referendum. And that is the turning point in relation with KRG and Iran. So Qasim Soleimani with Mohandis, they started a very offensive campaign. They come back to Kirkuk, and they have also killed many Peshmergas by using Hajj al-Sha'bi to control this city. They were under control of the Kurds. So here, briefly, that's what I have seen from these four presidents. And so the referendum, it was it was a turning point in, let's say, to change the relation between Kurds, KRG, and Iran from to be a friend to be like an enemy. Even still, we try to reconstruct our relation with Iran, but still, Iran, they are looking at the KRG from a very suspicious perspective. Finally, that is that's the variables from Rosnow, and we did assessment for each variables and for every president. So you can see when it comes to Ahmadinejad, here we have the problems. So the problem started with Ahmadinejad parallelly when Maliki came to power. Then it ends, unfortunately, with that Iran, they attacked many times before 7 October, before Israel and Iran, 12 days conflict. They attacked by drone. They killed many people in Erbil in the name of, because that's an excuse, because many Israeli, they are operating in Erbil in order to fight Iran. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kardo Rashid, for this interesting presentation. We now will move to our third speaker, Dr. Khalifa Al-Kuwari, who is going to speak in Arabic. So those who are using translation devices should put it on. And I'm going to speak in Arabic, introducing him.
العربية لأقدمه باللغة العربية عفوا. الدكتور خليفة أحمد الكواري, who is a lecturer in the cyber law. He's got طبعا, of course, he is a faculty member of the Qatar Police Academy and lecturer Qatar Cyberspace Academy. Holds a PhD in international law from the University of Bradford. He completed a specialized training in cyber operations at the NATO Cooperation Cyber Defense Context of Excellence and the International Cyber Law Academy. His research interests include international law of cyber operations, regional cooperation in cyber operations, and focus on Gulf Cooperation Council countries. The floor is yours. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdel Moussa. Good evening to you all. At the outset, I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Mahran, and I would like also to thank the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies. And also, I'd like to thank the Iranian Studies Unit. I would like to talk about the Iranian cyber strategy and Iran's cyber role in regional conflicts. So, this is one of the most complex strategies, and I'm going to analyze this strategy from the perspective of international law. My research paper talks about certain details pertaining to the Iranian cyber strategy in regional conflicts, and I'm going to concentrate particularly on responding to three pivotal questions. What does Iran say? We're going to listen to their official discourses and analyze the legal discourse regarding cyberspace. And what does Iran do? We're going to move from theory to reality and try to review the most important practices in the hidden digital world, and also try to discover the mystery. How do we understand this contradiction between words and actions and strategic ambitions? In 2020, Iran's General Staff of the Armed Forces announced the establishment of Iran's General Staff of the Armed Forces for Cyberspace for Islamic Republic Cybersecurity. So Iran went through a difficult situation which led it to recalculate, revisit all its policies, and Iran has transformed itself from a victim into a very important player in the cyberspace. So after 10 years, in 2020, Iran established itself as a country that is going to respond and respect international law. And of course, we have four articles in this declaration, and we're talking about sovereignty, the principle of non-interference, and the use of force. But was this image a real one? We're going to try to analyze the words uttered by Iran. What does Iran say in its cybersecurity strategy? We have article number 1 that talks about the importance of absolute sovereignty, where the country has the complete right to control its digital sovereignty. And here lies the disparity between what the whole world sees, what the world sees, that there should be some pivotal and material pieces of evidence. So Iran, on the contrary, sees that even if this piece of evidence is not material, whether it's cultural or social, constitutes a real aggression on its sovereignty. In other words, any of such acts would be a violation, whether this act is impactful or not. The second article tries to talk about equality. So there is no sovereignty that is better than the other sovereignty of another country. So any restrictive kind of measures would not be acceptable. Yes, all countries are equal when it comes to sovereignty. But when there are sanctions, it doesn't mean that sometimes is a violation of the sovereignty, particularly if those acts happen outside the border of that particular country. So Iran, for a long period of time, has been subjected to so many sanctions, and these also had an impact on its decisions. Also, we have the second pillar that concentrates on the principle of non-interference, so that countries should not interfere in other countries in a way that holds or that exercises an act of compulsion. So this also applies to the cyberspace, and Iran has its own red line. So the principle of non-interference prohibits any state from intervening in the internal or external affairs of other countries, and whether directly through the use of armed forces or through the exercise of pressure, economic in particular, or indirect interference through internal affairs against a target state. but the hardline explanation and interpretation does not show a real explanation of the law. It reveals the fact that Iran wants to create a kind of a shield that will protect it from any external criticism. And we have also the fourth pillar that talks about the prohibition of use of force when it comes to international relations. So the principle of non-use of force prohibits states from resorting to armed force in their international relations. And for Iran, this is similar to any other traditional kind of attack. So that is why Iran has a different view compared to the United States of America. The United States of America does not differentiate between the two acts, so the use of force and cyber attack. And here we see a contradiction. After Iran built a high ceiling about its own sovereignty, we find it all of a sudden being flexible when it comes to banning the use or prohibiting the use of force. Why do we have this contradiction? There is a strategic answer. Iran is aware of the superiority of its own enemies. So that is why they want all the cyber activities to be under the banner of the use of force, which will deprive its enemies from using any justification. Any attack is unlawful. So what have we seen so far? We have seen a legal position which is a dual strategic approach. So we have a position that shows that it is very flexible and keeps its acts in a very gray area. So traditional international legal rules apply regarding cyber conflicts, but Iran interprets it in a different way. What does Iran actually do? Iran is actively engaged in a wide range of activities. So the first case in 2022, particularly on the 7th of September, something that is unprecedented happened. It is the first country in the history that relationships are cut with it because of a cyber attack, and the victim was Albania. Albania hosted the Mujahidi Khalq in an event. So there have been international investigations because of the military aggression or on traditional political crisis, but because also of a cyber attack. For the first time in history, cyber attacks became sufficient grounds for severing relations between these two countries, Iran and Albania. So this has led to so many questions. So how does Iran use cyberspace as a tool for its regional conflicts and so on and so forth? And we had another case also. Since the Stuxnet attack, Iran and Israel are waging a cyber war. It is a continuous exchange in the cyberspace without any official recognition from any of the two parties. So we have Israeli response strike on Shahid Rajia port and poisoning of the Israeli water network, and also a continued escalation as a result of the mutual attacks between the two countries. But the 7th of October is a turning point. So the cyberspace attacks have expanded. So the confrontation is no longer between two countries, Israel and Iran. No, the battle has become an open one. We have non-state actors who have carried out a number of attacks, and also we have volunteers, transnational volunteers who have taken advantage of this space in order to try to promote the narrative of muqawama or resistance. And the third case, the digital space, is not only a battlefield, it is a tool for the larger Iranian strategy used to support its allies and proxies as part of its advance defense strategy, and instead of waiting for the attacks to come to its borders, no, Iran would try to defend itself far away from its borders by enabling and empowering its allies in Lebanon, in Palestine, in Yemen and Iraq. From the perspective of Iran, the support of the axis of resistance is not an act of aggression. These are groups that are fighting for the Ummah, and Tehran continues with support despite the criticism from the international community. So they're also exploiting ambiguity and the strategic cost of all of that. But when we talk about Iran, it displays a significant contradiction between stated legal rhetoric and sovereign and non-interference rhetoric, its aggressive practices in the cyberspace. So this, of course, has led to the an expanded kind of access to the cyberspace, where we see a huge contradiction. We have attacks have not weakened the foes, they have made them much stronger, and also this has led to loss of credibility. And we have had the Iranian declaration of 2020 that has led to some hope as a positive initiative, but it was only ink on paper. So we have seen a new reality show, such as the intervention in the American elections, violating the principles that it pledged to respect. And as a result of that, this showed that this is only a tool for public relations in order to gain influence through words, while acts show the different story altogether. In conclusion, we would like to go back to our first question. How do we understand this contradiction? We have seen Iran calling for the implementation of international law, but the acts has shown a different story altogether. So this shows that this pragmatic relation where we see the use of international law as a weapon and as a shield. So a weapon to fight its enemies and also as a shield in order to defend itself. So this puts the international community in front a big challenge, and this is the question that I would like to leave you with. So how can you deal with a player that writes the rules of the game while playing the game itself? Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Kuwari. Thank you for your important intervention. I think that the floor is open for questions and answers. So we'd like to have long questions. إذن سأفسح المجال للأسئلة والأجوبة.
Generous than my colleagues who led the previous sessions and warned everyone talking that he needs to be concise and short. We are wrapping up, so you have the right to give comments or questions, but be into the point and introduce yourself at the beginning and look for the mic. So who's the first to go? Sir, and please bring the mic to him.
Thank you, Mr. Moderators. Regarding to the comment that raised by Dr. Khurshid and also my dear brother, Mr. Khalifa Al-Kuwari, I would like to present some clarification. And my name is Dr. Ghani. I am a Deputy Ambassador of Iran in Doha. As you know very well, you refer, Dr. Khurshid, to the concept of preventative doctrine in the attack of Israel. You know very well that according to international law, the preventative attack or preventative doctrine is totally illegal and has no place in international law. After 1945 till today, the preventative concept or preventative attack is totally illegal, and there is not any place in international law. This is the first point that we want to raise. regarding to the point that raised by dear brother Khalifa, I would like to emphasize on this point. I think there is some misunderstanding and misperception for the cyberspace, cybercrime, and what is exactly raised in Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter. You know very well that the Article 2.4 of United Nations Charter emphasizes to the any use of force or threat of force is forbidden according to the United Nations Charter. But in Article 51, exactly concentrated on it, if the one state is attacked under the military attack, has inalienable right to self-defense itself, but is conditional, emphasizes again, until that the United Nations Security Council take all necessary measures to maintain international peace and security. Having said that, I would like to say that I personally, I am not, this is my personal view, this is not my official view. I think the cyberspace or cybercrime, that you're right, that as you mentioned, it is the urgent need international system that the prepare one international regimes or international mechanism for the formulation for cyberspace, cyber attacks, cybercrime, etc. Because in favor of our government and our state, or in favor for all of the members of United Nations. But this is totally different that we can, that by virtue of cyberspace or cybercrime, we want to interpretation and make a relation between with this concept with the self-defense. It's totally different. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is the lady in the first row there, and then we'll go for you, sir.
أشكر الضيوف وأشكر الدكتور.
I thank the panelists and the speakers. My question is, what is the position of the international law regarding the support provided by Iran to its allies in the region, like the Houthis, for example? What's the position of the international law regarding this?
Thank you. I am Bayram Sinke from Ankara Yıldırım Beyazıt University. I want to raise my question to Dr. Sabiha Khurshid on the implications of Iran's ballistic program, missile program. Until now, the missile program had influenced arms races in the Middle East as well. So you provided a successful achievements of Iranian missile program, but what will be the future implications in terms of arms races and in terms of involvement of extra-regional actors in the region? And I want to ask a question to Dr. Kardo Rashid. You told the narrative from the perspective of Iranian presidents mainly, but you didn't tell about the change in Kurdish political structure or Kurdish political landscape. So what was the implication of the death of Celal Talabani on the change of Iran-PUK relations or Iran-KRG relations? And until recently, we used to know that PUK, the Talibanese party, was supposed to be pro-Iranian party. Is it now turned into anti-Iranian? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? I don't see any. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I asked a question from Dr. Khurshid about the case that she mentioned that the Iranian missile and drone programs, it is relatively maintain national pride and some other like counter its adversaries, project deterrence, and the last is influence the regional security architecture. May I ask her that? May I ask you that? What is the impact, implications of the missile system in Middle East after the 12 days war? I am asking this question because Israeli media were prohibited to show the case of Iranian damages by Iranian missiles inside of Israel. But recently I read an article from the head of the Weizmann Institute. And Weizmann Institute is very important in the engineering and sciences in the world. He told the gentleman in Nature, he wrote an article and said that really many structures of building and laboratories, all of them, they have been damaged, and it was better to work with Iranians, something like that. But I want to say, if Iran did not have this system, I mean missiles, how could Iran prevent Israelis to do more? You should look at the Syrian situation after collapse of Mr. Bashar Assad. Now every day you receive news and reports about the Israeli attack to Syria. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions? I don't see any hand raised, so we'll back to the stage and allow every one of our speakers like 5 minutes, and we'll proceed the same order. Dr. Khurshid first.
Okay, so the first question was about the legality or about the practice of international norms on preemptive strikes. We have seen in recent past frequently the erosion of international norms and the violation of international structure, UN Security Council resolution repeatedly on front of many states. I was discussing the posture, the military doctrine of Israel. Israel follow offensive doctrine when it comes to regional security. It believes on neutralize the target before it materialize the attack on its sovereignty. So it often involves itself into preemptive strikes on regional states by claiming it as a threat, by perceiving it, by portraying it, or by building a narrative across the globe that they are the threat to the security and safety of Israel. We have seen during the 2003 war of United States against Iraq, the narrative was built around weapons of mass destruction. And it was a preemptive strike. Again, the preemptive strikes are banned, are not part of international law, are not recognized by United Nations Security Council. But when it comes to states, as I discussed as part of regional security complex theory, that the state structure, the international structure is anarchic in nature. So there is no centralized authority, there is no centralized body which can regulate the actions of states. There is no centralized authority which punish them with force. I'm not talking about sanctions. Sanctions does play a role in terms of limited role. But there is no framework or no force that made states to not take preemptive strike against other states. And in recent past, it has become a norm in many parts of the world. We have seen in case of Pakistan and India, India also launched preemptive strikes on name of terrorism in Balakot last year. We have seen in Israel attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. We have seen United States attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. We have seen many other parts of the world. And I don't, in my personal view, the international rule-based order led by United States is in decline. And when a structure or system is in decline, there is no respect. States don't respect their own created system. So there is an alternative system emerging from various parts of the world. We see emerging multipolarity, and other states are projecting another worldview which might be based on the same aspects which has been the part and parcel of international liberal world order. And the second question was about the arms race in region. Yes, I argued that the military arsenal, including ballistic missile and drone program of Iran, is intensifying the arms race. hence perpetuating a cycle of instability in the region. But if I talk about the pure realistic paradigm, it is based on security, survival, and self-interest. And I still believe that we live in the world which Hobbes painted centuries ago. It is solitary, brutish, and nasty. So when it comes to the state's security and survival, I believe that every state has the fundamental right to procure, to build, and to materialize its defense arsenal to its teeth for its defense capabilities. Sir, your question was wonderful. I think what you said that Iranian attacks were not shown on Israeli TV, but this is the time of social media. No matter how states try to put oppressions, or control social media in their lands, but it is time of social media and news spread like anything. So the time of globalization, I don't think so. The world is not aware that what damage Iran has done or how much Iran has penetrated. And to the question which posed you, I'm not glorifying actually the role of Iran, that Iran has did this. The military doctrine of Iran is perpetuating a cycle of instability within the region. But when it comes to the states' own point of view, I won't think so, and I don't think that Iranians' point of defensive posture are building a military arsenal, whether in terms of asymmetric power, because it has a limited economy, it is under sanction, it is in isolation. So the Iranian strategy when it comes to realistic paradigm is online. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Dr. Rashid.
Well, still Taliban's party, they are pro-Iranian still. Even they have a control over the green zone, we call it. We have a yellow zone and green zone. Yellow zone, it belongs to Barzani family. They are close to the Turkish states. They cooperate with the Turkish because Barzani's family, they are against PKK, and that's why they cooperate with the Turkish government. And when it comes to the Taliban's party, Taliban, he passed away, and his son is Bavel Taliban. He is in charge now. Still, they are pro-Iranians. Even some will say that, well, they cooperate with Israel. They have a kind of Israeli cooperation, but that's not true. They are pro-Iranian. They cannot be out of the Iranians' influence. But what I want to say, in order to understand that the relation between KRG and Iran, we need to look at the Iran-Iraq relations. Iran doesn't look at Iraq as a state, as a sovereign state, doesn't respect Iraq as a sovereign state. That's what we have seen many times. We have seen, for example, we have around 100 different militias in Iraq. Majority of them, they belong to Ayatollah Khamenei, and they say it very, very directly. So what does it mean? It means inside of Iraq, Iraqi militias, they have money from Iraq. They are Iraqi people, but they belong to other states. So how can you explain it? That's a problem. Another problem is Iran tried to control Sunni in Iraq plus Kurds, because Kurds also considered as a Sunni. Majority of the Kurds in Iraq, I mean, they are Sunni, and they are also Shafi'i. They belong to that school. So in order to keep control over Sunni, so they have also kind of very exclusive policy against Sunni and also Kurds. That is why we have a kind of problems, or that relation changed from be a friend that we were in friend in past, but now it looks like we are kind of not in good relation with Iran, which is not good for Iran, because we have to cooperate. We have to be a good neighbor. So let's see how we'll be in the future. Thank you.
دكتور خليفة تفضل.
أول شيء شكرا على الأسئلة.
Thank you for questions first. In response to the Deputy Ambassador, Iran did not have different authorization, different than other countries so far as self-defense in the cyber warfare side, because when I studied international law that applies to cyberspace, I think Iran wanted to send a message to the world regarding the implementation of international law. There is no difference on the right to self-defense according to Article 51 of the UN Charter, but there is a difference in how to interpret the interpretation of using force. And of course, and whether or not the use of force does necessarily mean armed force all the time. In our analysis, why has Iran expanded this interpretation? Because Iran realizes that its adversaries are stronger than Iran in military force and cyber capabilities. So therefore, when anybody uses force against Iran, Iran has expanded its interpretation. I agree with His Excellency the Deputy Ambassador that the international community really needs to come up with the kind of mechanisms. In the Middle East, there is Iran, Israel, and Turkey. I think there are some 30 countries and some 2 international organizations maybe, so far as agreement to international law. Now the global north sets the standards as to how to apply international law in the cyberspace. For this reason, I urge all countries and specifically areas in this region to move from the phase of just implementing standards to make our own standards. As for the position of international law, so far as Iran supporting the axis of resistance, the international law is clear. The international law expands the responsibility of states in supporting unofficial non-state actors, whether through providing arms and weapons or training. If this is proven, then according to international law, then this state will be responsible for the actions taken by this group. Thank you very much. شكرا لكم جميل.
Dr. Rashid, Dr. Khurshid, for this fruitful discussion. I think we will move to the final session. Do you want us to take like 5 minutes to have a sip of coffee? Is it enough? Okay, so we'll get like 5 minutes for a sip of coffee, and everyone comes back very soon to finish earlier. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.